Hey everyone, so new setting. I'm not entirely sure about whether or not this is going to be the setting that I constantly use for my videos, just because I do kind of want to film in my room where I have these little fairy lights behind my bed on the backboard, but I'm going to need artificial lighting for that. So until I get all of that sort of stuff, this is going to be my background, and I have my little Christmas tree behind me, so it's kind of festive, and I do kind of like this background. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that I'd prefer to kind of be filming in a place where I don't have to move around things all the time, because this isn't actually where everything like is. This table's not normally here and all that kind of stuff. I just need to, you know, move it around for the sake of the video. But anyways, I'm back to filming now that I have moved, because obviously I have moved into my apartment now. So today's video is going to be how to avoid the cake face. And I think that everybody, no matter whether you are experienced with makeup or not, has at some point in their life had a cake face, put way too much makeup on. If you don't know what a cake face is, it's basically a term for somebody who wears too much makeup or has too much makeup on their face. It kind of looks like they have layers upon layers upon layers, and I know that I have definitely done that in the past. I do try not to have a cake face. I try to keep everything as naturally looking and as blended into my skin as possible. Sometimes I do like to wear a little bit more makeup than some days, but I definitely don't like to kind of look cakey and feel as though there's a ton of makeup on my face. So these are going to be my tips on how to avoid that. And I think that everybody can have a cake face at some point, whether you have oily skin or dry skin, but I typically think that if you have dry skin, you're more prone to getting a cake face, because you don't have oil sort of coming through the makeup and kind of making everything look a little bit more luminous. Sometimes it can look quite flat and quite layered on your face when you have drier skin. So you know, no matter what sort of skin type that you have, these tips will apply to you, but more specifically I think for dry skin. So this is kind of going to be a, you know, how to avoid the cake face slash makeup application for drier skin, and how to kind of make your skin look more luminous and not so flat, and in turn that will kind of avoid looking cakey. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the steps that you should take pre-makeup. So the things that you should do before your makeup to make sure that you avoid looking cakey, looking like you have a ton of layer of makeup on your skin, and once again, perfect for dry skin. So exfoliating is a really, really huge key. I don't believe that you should exfoliate any more than once or twice a week, just because over exfoliating can change the pH balance in your skin, and it can actually break you out quite a bit. But exfoliating maybe once or twice a week, maybe a little bit more if you have very, very dry, flaky skin. But exfoliating is really, really important to remove the dead skin cells on the surface of your skin. If you're applying makeup, especially powdery products, over the top of dead skin, especially skin that is flaking, it is going to look like a really, really big mess. You really do need to exfoliate your skin to make it look more radiant, to make it look more luminous, and to just help the makeup product sit better on your skin. Another couple of tips for applying before your makeup is obviously moisturizer. Moisturizer is a huge key to apply before your makeup, just to kind of create a nice base for your makeup. It can make your skin look more luminous, and it's not going to be kind of going on in patchy areas. So moisturizing is really, really important. Also primers. I'm not a huge fan of primers. I don't think that they do very much for my skin, apart from maybe create a little bit more of a nicer texture. Although, as I sort of said before, I tend to have more dry skin, more normal to dry skin, so I don't really find that my makeup kind of disappears that much throughout the day, which is in turn what primer is meant to do, is kind of help to keep your makeup on longer. But I think that primers are a good idea just to kind of smooth over the skin and create a nice base. It'll really help with the texture, and it'll really make everything kind of go on a lot more evenly. Pore fillers I think are a really, really good product to use as well. I think that NYX has a pore filler, but one of the most sort of, I guess, stereotypical pore fillers to use is the Benefit Professional, is it? I've never tried that pore product before, but I know it is very popular. And pore fillers are basically just a product that's kind of like a primer. It kind of goes on like a silicone kind of feely product and you just apply it onto the areas that you have pores, so mostly that's like the chin, around the nose area, the forehead, and actually kind of fills in the pores to make it go a lot smoother. I specifically really want to try out the Benefit Professional because I do have pores around this area and it makes your skin look uneven in texture. So using the pore filler will really help to kind of smooth everything over and make everything go on a lot nicer. Next up is foundation. Now foundation is very important to avoid cakiness, and for the most part I think that it is about the technique and the application that is going to make the most difference in avoiding having a cakey face rather than the foundation itself. However, I do think it's important to find a foundation that is for your skin type. So if you have oily skin, you're not going to want a foundation that is super luminous because it's going to slide around on your face throughout the day. It's going to be more likely to come off and everything's going to be kind of dragged down and muddle in together, which can look very cakey and disgusting. And also if you have more dry skin, you're not going to want something necessarily that is super full coverage, very thick, sort of matte looking. Picking a foundation that works with your skin tone. If you have more normal skin, you can maybe kind of try and find a foundation that's more on a satin finish, so not something that's super dewy but not something that's matte. Just trying to find a foundation that suits your skin tone will really help the foundation to look its best on your skin and avoid looking too dry and sticking to flaky patches which can look very cakey, or sliding around on your face because it's too oily. For application of foundation, as I said, I think that it is the most important part to not looking cakey, how you apply foundation. And once again, it depends very much on your skin. Some of the brushes that I think are really great to apply foundation no matter what your skin type is buffing brushes. So this one's the Real Techniques buffing brush, which is a little bit more softer than this one, which is the Sigma F80 Flat Top Kabuki. This is the one that I use, and what I personally do is I buff the foundation onto my skin, and then on any areas that I feel I need more coverage, like any blemishes or any hyperpigmentation, I just stipple a little bit more foundation onto those areas. And I like this brush because it is dense enough that it can really buff product into your face, which will look more natural, so that the foundation's not sitting on top of your skin, which can create cakiness if you have layer upon layer of product. But it's also dense enough to really push product into your skin if you suffer from acne and you don't want to be buffing product around because it's just not going to cover enough, or if you have very sensitive skin and you don't like kind of, you know, creating too much of a stir on your face, it can really pat the product in, which looks very natural as well. Another one which is great for all skin types and a really good product to avoid cakiness is the Beauty Blender. I do apologise, mine's quite dirty. The Beauty Blender is quite expensive if you buy the original one. I think this is about $25. I got mine from Beauty Bay, if you're wondering. And it's basically a sponge that's in a little egg shape. You put this under water and you squeeze out the excess water so that it's damp, and then you can apply product like this onto your face. Most typically people use this for foundation. You can use it for concealer as well, just to really blend in the product, and it just really pushes the foundation into your skin, makes it look very natural, very like your skin kind of finish. And it's really good, and it adds moisture into your skin as well. So if you do suffer from dry skin, I would probably say this is your best bet, because you're putting moisture into your skin as well, which is really going to help make it more luminous and kind of take away from that dryness. So I think these kinds of products that really help to push product into your skin, so if you are using layers of products like concealer and powder and bronzer and blush and all that kind of stuff, it's not all sitting on top of your face. So next up is concealer. Now I personally think obviously concealer is quite a lot more thick a lot of the time than a foundation, obviously depending on the product, but a lot of people tend to say that you should use less foundation and then more concealer. I'm personally a bit more opposite to that. I like to use more foundation and less concealer just because I find it looks more natural on me. But I really recommend using cream concealers that are very moisturizing on your skin, because any kind of dry concealer is going to look very thick and cakey on the skin. This is just one that I use. It's from Makeup Studio, and it's the concealer box in #1, and it just has a bunch of different, I know it's very dirty, I apologize, but I use it every single day, and it has 6 different shades. It has these ones down here, which, you know, you can kind of use green for kind of correcting redness and stuff like that, and then it has 3 concealers up here, and I just find that these blend in really nicely. They are thick, but they're not thick as in the point where they're drying on my skin or they're too much, because they're very creamy and they blend in very nicely, but they do give nice coverage. They're really great to use on blemishes and underneath the eyes. So cream concealers are really, really good. And I think the best way to avoid looking cakey with concealer is using your fingers to blend it in, or using something like a beauty blender just to kind of pat the product on. Because if you use a brush, and say you use a fluffy brush to kind of, you know, buff the concealer in, sometimes it can just move everything around and it can settle into fine lines. So pressing product into your skin with your finger, with a warm finger that's going to really blend and push the product in, once again is going to make it just melt into your skin very seamlessly and not sit on top. So I think that's a really, really good tip, to actually use your finger. I really don't like using my finger when I'm applying makeup, but I have been doing it with concealer just because it gives me the best natural finish. Also, another tip is try to avoid using highlighting concealer on areas where you have pores. So for instance, I have pores here, and sometimes I do the kind of V with which I don't know if you can tell now, but I do the sort of V with a lighter concealer. Normally I use the first one because it's lighter, like 1 or 2 shades lighter than my skin, just to really kind of brighten up my under eye. And what I find when I use that is that my pores right on top of here get very enlarged, because when you highlight it brings things forward. This is a bit of an issue because, once again, pores can kind of make your skin look untexturized, and if you're using a highlighter it can bring it forward. So try and avoid that. Try and avoid applying any kind of highlighter. If you have like a blemish here, don't put any kind of lighter concealer on there because it's just going to bring it forward. Try and kind of just, you know, keep it very minimum, and try and keep it away from pores that emphasize an untexturized skin, because I always think that an even texture on your skin will make your skin look a lot more natural and not cakey, whereas if you're applying it to pores, for instance, or different areas of your skin that are uneven, it can look very different and very cakey because it's all an uneven texture. So try and just keep it to areas of your face that don't have pores, don't have blemishes, so that you're not bringing attention to those areas. Next up is powder. I think powder is one of the main causes of cakiness, because it is a product that just screams cakiness if you apply it way too much or you apply the wrong kind of thing. Now, for people with dry skin, I think this is the worst case, because with oily skin, you know, sometimes, as I said, the oil can kind of shine through. What I suggest if you have dry skin to avoid looking cakey by setting your face with the powder, because I don't like using powder because of the fact that, as I said, it can look more cakey. I would prefer if I could just wear a foundation without any powder, but when I do that, my foundation tends to move around a little bit more, especially if it's humid outside, and if I touch my face, my foundation can transfer. So I like setting my makeup with powder, and I feel like other products go on nicer, like blush and bronzer. So I recommend using a translucent powder. This isn't going to add really any coverage to your skin, it's just going to set your makeup so that it stays in place. This one's from Makeup Studio. Translucent powder doesn't give any kind of grey or beigey kind of cast to your skin, so it's really good. And also something like the Maybelline Dream Matte Powder. I know I was saying to try and stay away from matte powders if you have dry skin, but this one is not very thick, like it's very finely milled, so it's not going to give you any kind of coverage. I recommend staying away from powder foundations if you have drier skin, because that is just going to look way too much over the top of an actual foundation and concealer. Don't use powder foundations. If you can, use something that's very finely milled, that's very sheer, that you can just use to set. Now, application of powder, once again, I think is really important. Just like the application of foundation, I think it can kind of make or break whether you look cakey. I personally, and this is for me, if you have dry skin or you have pores, I personally recommend that you stay away from brushes like this. So powder brushes, buffing product, powder onto your skin can move around your foundation. It can once again create that uneven texture around your pores. I don't really like these kinds of brushes. I don't like patting foundation onto my skin with these kinds of brushes, because it will make your powder sit on top of your skin, which can look very cakey. It can cling to dry patches, it can cling to the fine hairs on the face. It'll just look like a mess. So I don't like these brushes for powder. I also don't really like these brushes for powder. This is the e.l.f. powder brush. These flat top brushes, I like them for foundation, but I don't really like them for powder, because I like to press powder onto my face so that I'm not buffing it around and moving everything around. But these pick up a lot of product because they're so dense, they pick up a lot of powder. And for me, I need a very, very fine layer of powder because, as I said, I don't have super oily skin. If you do have more on the dry side, you don't need to set your whole entire face with a thick layer of powder. It's going to look too much, so you kind of want to avoid using brushes like this. What I recommend is using the Beauty Blender for powder. If you didn't think that you could use this for powder, you can. Once again, just wet it under water. I know that you wouldn't think that powder and water mix, but wet it under water, squeeze out the excess, and then just use, I think these work really well with translucent powders, but I don't really like these because they get everywhere. So I just use my compact, I just press my Beauty Blender into the compact, and I just pat it around the areas that I need. Normally I just use one little bit, and I put it on one side of my face, put it on the other side of my face, and I'm done. It gives a very, very even, small amount of powder onto my skin. It just sets my foundation and it's not too much. And once again, it's pressing the powder into my skin, so it's looking more natural, and it's adding moisture as well. So my face isn't going to look very powdery and very matte and cakey because I have more dry skin. I don't want my skin to look super matte. I don't want it to have a 50 layers of powder on my skin. It's just going to make my skin look cakey. So using a Beauty Blender is going to pick up less product, it's going to add moisture, and it's going to really, really press the powder into your skin. Another tip that you can do with powder, if you do want to avoid looking cakey, is just apply powder to the T-zone area. So right here, down here onto your chin is where you mostly get oily, maybe a little bit on your nose area as well, onto the cheeks. That's where you're going to generally tend to get oily, even if you don't get super oily. So just applying powder to that area as well is also really good. But what I just typically tend to do is use the Beauty Blender just all over my face with a very, very fine amount of powder, and it's just going to help to set my makeup so that it's not going to move. Cream products are also a really, really good way to avoid looking cakey, so not applying too much powder to your face. This is really good if you have dry skin. The Revlon Cream Blush in Flushed is really, really good. It's just a very, very nice natural pink colour. You can just apply this on with like a buffing brush or something like that. Always, always apply cream products underneath your powder. Always put your foundation on, concealer, cream blush, cream bronzer, and then powder. You don't want to put any kind of cream products over the top of powder because that is going to look super, super cakey. But using a cream product like this is really, really good. It'll blend really nicely into your face and make it look luminous, which is going to avoid the cakiness altogether, and great for dry skin. I use this brown here for contouring on my face before my powder because I prefer it than using a powder bronzer. And it just gives me a really, really nice sculptured look, but it's also blending really seamlessly and melting into my foundation. Another thing that you can use is use finishing spray. These kinds of products are meant to make your foundation last longer. Once again, kind of difficult for me to determine that because I don't really get very oily, so just with setting my face with the powder, it normally tends to work out pretty well for me. But using something like this is really, really good if you have dry skin and to kind of take away cakiness. What I normally tend to do is I apply this after my moisturizer, before and after my primer, before my foundation, so that my foundation goes on very luminous, and then I apply it after my foundation and after my concealer just to kind of help to set it a little bit better before I apply powder. I don't apply a powder straight on top of this. I let my foundation kind of set. That's another thing. Let your foundation set a little bit. Put your foundation on, put your concealer on, put your cream products on, let it set for about 5 minutes, and then put your powder on. If you put powder straight over the top, your foundation can still be a little wet, and putting powder on the top of wet skin is going to make it look so, so cakey and blotchy. So make sure that your foundation is set before. So apply a little bit of this, wait for it to set, put your foundation on, your powder on, and then spritz your face after you've finished your whole entire makeup. And what this does is just helps to kind of refresh your skin, make it more luminous, and it helps to settle powder as well. So if you have applied a little bit too much powder, you can just kind of spritz this, wet it a little bit, and it's going to look a lot more luminous and kind of settle that powder into your skin so that once again it's not sitting on top of the skin and looking cakey and powdery. So that's pretty much it for this video. I really hope that you guys found it helpful. As I said, if you do suffer from dry skin, I think cakiness is such a bother because you can just apply the smallest amount of product and it just feels like it's sitting on top of your skin and it looks too much, and these are just the sorts of things that I do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see any more kind of tips, videos like this, let me know in the comments. Please thumbs up this video, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff for regular updates if you want to. So that's it. I hope you guys have a really, really good day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.